As Russian shelling intensifies, the top prosecutor at the International Criminal Court says he's launching a probe into possible war crimes and crimes against humanity in Ukraine. In fear for their lives with nowhere to go, the UN says close to 500,000 refugees from Ukraine have fled the country. President Zelensky signs an application for EU accession, hoping to fast-track Ukraine's membership as the conflict continues.
Air raid sirens are once again heard in Kyiv, with reports of a Russian strike on the outskirts of the city. The thump of distant shelling is getting ever nearer. Across Ukraine, terrified families huddle overnight in shelters, basements or corridors. Russian forces had earlier shelled Ukraine's second largest city, rocking a residential neighbourhood. Dozens of people were killed in the missile strikes on Kyiv, according to Ukraine's Interior Ministry. Moscow says it's not targeting civilians, but the International Criminal Court's prosecutor wants to open a probe into possible war crimes. Satellite images now reveal a huge convoy of Russian armour, about 65 kilometres long, advancing on the capital, Kyiv. The Russian offensive has so far met with Ukrainian resistance, and amid growing international condemnation, Russia is finding itself increasingly isolated. Stepping up his rhetoric, Russian President Vladimir Putin denounced the US and its allies as an empire of lies. The European Union has added 26 more people to its sanctions list imposed over the invasion, including some of Putin's closest confidants. His own press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, is on the list. Along with a number of journalists, the EU has accused of spreading anti-Ukrainian propaganda. Shell, Europe's largest oil company, is the latest oil giant to cut ties with Russia's Gazprom. It's to exit 4 oil and gas joint ventures valued at about $3 billion. And Turkey, a Russia ally, has closed the Dardanelles and Bosporus to military ships, saying it cannot abandon its ties with either Russia or Ukraine and wants to prevent an escalation of the war.
Well, it may seem very quiet around me, but the Ukrainian capital is really in combat mode and indeed in combat mood. The fact that after 5 days of war, the Russian invasion of Kyiv had yet not occurred was seen by many and all those I've spoken to as already a form of victory. And the mobilization of the population is total. People are enrolling day by day with the recruitment officers of the territorial defense, and I've seen that myself. I've seen the queues, and those who are not enrolling are, really ready to help the army in any possible way by donating food, donating blood, donating money, and also, making improvised weapons at their homes like Molotov cocktails. I've seen people, volunteers, helping soldiers erect barricades around the city. And also, there are checkpoints sprouting up everywhere, and there the mood is really, quite nervous. The soldiers are under maximum alert, and I could, experience that myself on one occasion. I was controlled at gunpoint until all my documents were checked, and it's understandable. There have been, street fights between Ukrainian civilians and non-identified Russian groups carrying out sabotage operations now and then in the city, and those operations can be lethal. Some people have been killed, including children. So there is a lot of tension indeed, but in any case, people here are really determined not to surrender 1 inch of their city to the Russian troops. I'm Valerie Goria in Kyiv for Euronews.
Ukraine and Russia have held their first peace talks since the start of the war last week. A delegation headed by Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov traveled to the Belarusian border yesterday to meet with Russian officials. Kyiv called for a ceasefire and immediate withdrawal of Russian troops, but fighting continued for the duration of the almost 5-hour talks. Russian President Putin told his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron that Moscow would pull out only if Kyiv remains neutral and formally recognizes Russian control of Crimea. No major breakthrough was achieved during the talks, but both parties have agreed to meet again later this week.
Ukrainians, fearing time is running out to leave Kyiv, flood into a train station in the capital in a bid to catch a ride to a safer place as invading Russian troops close in.
We are leaving today because we are very scared to be killed by Russian soldiers. We are very scared to receive a rocket to our underground, our house, and we try to live just to stay alive.
We bring our cats, we bring our children, and we would like to find some safe place for them.
An estimated 500,000 people, most of them women, children, and the elderly, have already fled Ukraine to neighboring countries, according to the UN.
Приблизно 2 дні. Дуже великі затори були.
We stood there at the border for 2 days. There was a big traffic jam. We were there with the children, but there were volunteers. They gave us tea and food.
Які надавали нам гарячий чай, їжа.
And in Romania, EU Commissioner for Home Affairs Ylva Johansson visited a border crossing, where thousands of refugees are being cared for.
My specific responsibility as Commissioner for Home Affairs is to make sure that those people that can make it to the border to the European Union should be warmly welcomed.
Long lines of cars and buses were backed up at checkpoints at the border of Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, and non-EU member Moldova. Others crossed the border on foot and dragged their possessions away from the war, seeking safety. Euronews correspondent Shona Murray is in Romania with the EU's Commissioner for Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson, who is coordinating the bloc's response to the growing number of people fleeing Ukraine.
Well, the United Nations has said that 500,000 Ukrainians have now fled. I'm joined now by EU Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson. Commissioner, what changes has the EU proposed to support Ukrainian refugees?
Well, we are preparing to activate a temporary protection directive. We are preparing specific recommendations for how to deal with the situation at the borders. We are preparing with our agencies. We are preparing funding to support the member states most affected by the Ukrainians. But may I also say that one of the important things is to actually use all this unprecedented mobilization that we see from all the European citizens that are ready to support the Ukrainians fleeing from the war right now. That's why we need also coordination, both on national and EU level, and I'm ready to take my part of that. And may I also say that I think that we need to pay special attention to children, both families, especially mothers with small children. I saw a lot of them today coming over, crossing the borders, but also unaccompanied minors. Children need special protection. Unaccompanied minors need extra protection, and they have to have guardians, and they have to be protected not to fall victims of trafficking or any kind of abuse. So I would call on a specific focus on children.
Okay, thank you very much, EU Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson.